Emily Foster clutched her leather portfolio tightly as she gazed up at the imposing glass building that housed Platinum Edge Marketing, one of New York City's most prestigious luxury marketing firms. The morning September sun reflected off the skyscraper's surface, momentarily blinding her as if warning her about the dazzling world she was about to enter. A world that would change her life forever. "You've got this," she whispered to herself, straightening her carefully selected navy blue suit, a splurge from her meager savings that had eaten into her first month's rent. Born to modest parents, in a small town outside of Pittsburgh, her father a dedicated high school history teacher, and her mother a compassionate nurse at the local hospital, Emily had always yearned for more. While her parents instilled in her the values of hard work and integrity, Emily developed an insatiable hunger for success that propelled her through her academic career. Her determination and natural intelligence had earned her a full scholarship to Cornell University's business program, where she graduated at the top of her class. Now at 26, she stood on the precipice of her dreams, about to interview for an associate position at the firm that represented the most luxurious brands in the world. The elevator ride to the 38th floor felt eternal. Emily used those precious moments to center herself, mentally reviewing her portfolio and rehearsing answers to potential interview questions. When the doors finally opened, she stepped into a world of opulence, gleaming marble floors, abstract art pieces worth more than her parents' home, and floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of Manhattan's skyline. Ms. Foster, a sleek receptionist with an immaculate bob cut and perfectly applied red lipstick, greeted her. "Mr. Richardson will see you now." Emily was led through an open workspace where impeccably dressed marketing professionals worked at minimalist desks. Their conversations about campaign metrics for luxury watch brands and exclusive champagne houses floated around her. This was the world she had dreamed of entering since she first discovered her passion for marketing luxury brands during her internship at a small boutique agency in Pittsburgh. James Richardson, Platinum Edge's creative director, was a legend in the luxury marketing world. At 45, his salt and pepper hair and tailored Tom Ford suits had become as recognizable in the industry as his revolutionary campaigns for brands like Cartier and Bentley. "Emily Foster," he said, looking up from her resume as she entered his corner office. "You've made quite an impression on my HR team. Top of your class at Cornell, impressive internships, glowing recommendations. But tell me, what makes you think you understand luxury when you come from—" He glanced down at her resume again. "Oakdale, Pennsylvania." The question was delivered with a slight smirk, a test she had prepared for. Growing up watching her parents stretch every dollar had given Emily a unique perspective on value and aspiration, something she believed made her understand luxury consumers better than those born into privilege. "Mr. Richardson, it's precisely because I wasn't surrounded by luxury that I understand its true power," Emily replied confidently. "Luxury isn't just about expensive products. It's about crafting aspirational narratives that resonate on an emotional level. My campaign proposal for Lumiere Diamonds demonstrates how I would connect their heritage craftsmanship with modern consumers seeking meaning beyond mere status symbols." She opened her portfolio, revealing a meticulously crafted campaign that reimagined the century-old diamond brand for the digital age. As Richardson flipped through her work, his eyebrows raised slightly, the only indication that she had impressed him. "You start Monday," he said finally, closing her portfolio. "Don't make me regret this decision." Emily's heart soared, but she maintained her professional composure. "You won't, Mr. Richardson. Thank you for this opportunity." The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of 18-hour workdays, countless coffee runs, and immersion into the intricacies of luxury marketing. Emily absorbed everything around her like a sponge, staying late to analyze campaign metrics and volunteering for additional projects. Her dedication quickly caught the attention of senior management, particularly when her social media strategy for a boutique perfume house increased their engagement by 200%. Her small studio apartment in Brooklyn became little more than a place to shower and change clothes. New York's pulsating energy fueled her ambition, and she thrived on the constant pressure to prove herself. "You need to slow down," cautioned her best friend and former college roommate Nathan Reed during one of their rare catch-up calls. "This pace isn't sustainable, Em." Nathan, now working as a financial risk analyst at a conservative firm in Boston, had always been the voice of reason in Emily's life. Where she was ambitious and sometimes reckless in pursuit of her goals, Nathan was methodical and cautious, a balance that had made their friendship endure since freshman year at Cornell. "I can't slow down now, Nate," Emily replied, balancing her phone between her ear and shoulder while reviewing campaign materials spread across her tiny kitchen counter. "I'm this close to being assigned to lead the Ashcroft luxury account. Do you know what that would mean for my career?" "I know exactly what it means. You'll work yourself to exhaustion for a company that will replace you in a heartbeat," Nathan replied, concern evident in his voice. "Just be careful about the world you're entering, Em. Not everything that glitters is gold." Emily laughed off his concerns. "That's rich coming from someone who analyzes financial portfolios for a living. Besides, I've got this under control." But Emily's rapid rise at Platinum Edge didn't go unnoticed by everyone. Caroline Maxwell, a senior marketing executive who had been eyeing the Ashcroft account for herself, watched Emily's ascent with growing resentment. At 34, Caroline had spent years carefully navigating the politics of the luxury marketing world, and she wasn't about to let a newcomer from Pennsylvania disrupt her carefully laid plans. "James is seriously considering letting the new girl lead the Ashcroft campaign," Caroline complained to her colleague during a martini lunch at an exclusive restaurant overlooking Central Park. "She's barely been here 3 months." "Foster?" "She's good, though," her colleague replied, sipping her drink. "That perfume campaign was brilliant." "She's inexperienced and naive," Caroline retorted. "The Ashcroft account needs someone who understands the delicate balance between luxury and discretion. Someone like me." What Caroline didn't mention was that she had a personal connection to the Ashcroft empire. She had dated Alexander Ashcroft's younger brother briefly in college, a relationship that had ended poorly, but had given her insights into the family's closely guarded business operations. Meanwhile, Emily was completely unaware of the brewing office politics as she prepared for the biggest presentation of her career. James Richardson had indeed given her the chance to pitch her ideas for the Ashcroft Luxury Group's upcoming campaign, a rare opportunity for someone at her level. The Ashcroft Luxury Group was a sprawling conglomerate of high-end hotels, exclusive resorts and luxury retail brands founded by William Ashcroft in the 1950s. Now led by his grandson, Alexander Ashcroft, the company was known for its uncompromising standards and influential position in America's luxury market. Landing this account would not only cement Platinum Edge's status as the premier luxury marketing firm in New York, but would also catapult Emily's career to unprecedented heights. The night before her presentation, Emily worked until dawn, perfecting every slide, rehearsing every word. This was her moment to prove that she belonged in this world, that the scholarship girl from Pennsylvania could stand shoulder to shoulder with the elite of New York's marketing scene. When she finally presented her vision to the Platinum Edge executive team, even Caroline had to admit that Emily's concept was innovative. Her campaign, titled Legacy Redefined, seamlessly blended the Ashcroft tradition of excellence with contemporary luxury values of sustainability and experiential wealth. "This is precisely what the Ashcroft Group needs," Richardson announced after her presentation. "Emily, you'll lead the pitch to Alexander Ashcroft himself next week." As her colleagues congratulated her, Emily caught Caroline's cold stare from across the conference room. The older woman's tight smile didn't reach her eyes, but Emily was too elated to care about office rivalries. She was one step closer to securing her place in the luxury marketing world. What Emily didn't know was that her presentation wouldn't just change her career, it would change her entire life. Alexander Ashcroft wasn't just another client. He was about to become the most influential person in her world, for better or worse. And as Emily Foster prepared to meet the enigmatic heir to one of America's greatest luxury empires, she remained blissfully unaware that behind the glamorous facade of the Ashcroft Luxury Group lay secrets that would test not only her ambition, but also her integrity and her heart. The Ashcroft Tower stood like a monument to wealth and power in the heart of Manhattan. its sleek facade of glass and steel rising 60 floors above Fifth Avenue. Emily arrived 30 minutes early for the presentation, her heart racing as she rode the private elevator designated exclusively for Ashcroft executives and their guests. "Ms. Foster, welcome to Ashcroft Luxury Group," greeted a poised assistant when Emily stepped into the penthouse reception area. "The meeting will begin shortly. May I offer you something to drink while you wait?" "Just water, thank you," Emily replied, taking in the stunning panoramic views of Central Park. Original artwork by contemporary masters adorned the walls, and the furniture, minimalist yet clearly custom-made, spoke of understated wealth that had nothing to prove. Emily used the waiting time to center herself, mentally reviewing the key points of her presentation. James Richardson arrived with two other Platinum Edge executives just minutes before the scheduled meeting. "Ready to dazzle, Foster?" Richardson asked with a rare smile. Alexander Ashcroft is notoriously difficult to impress. Before Emily could respond, the meeting room doors opened and several Ashcroft executives filed in, followed by a man whose presence immediately commanded attention. Alexander Ashcroft was not what Emily had expected. At 42, he possessed none of the flashy ostentation common among New York's elite. Instead, he carried himself with quiet confidence in his impeccably tailored charcoal suit. His dark hair, slightly graying at the temples, was cut precisely, and his steel blue eyes seemed to evaluate everything with calculated precision. "Mr. Richardson," Alexander said, his voice deep and measured as he shook the creative director's hand. "I've been looking forward to hearing your team's ideas." When Alexander turned to Emily, she felt an unexpected jolt as their eyes met. "And you must be Emily Foster. I've heard you're the creative mind behind this presentation." "Yes, Mr. Ashcroft," Emily replied, pleased that her voice remained steady despite her nerves. "Thank you for taking the time to meet with us today." The presentation went flawlessly. Emily articulated her vision for repositioning the Ashcroft brand to appeal to a new generation of luxury consumers without alienating its traditional clientele. Her strategy emphasized the company's little-known sustainability initiatives and its history of quality craftsmanship, creating a narrative that was both forward-thinking and respectful of heritage. Throughout her presentation, Emily noticed Alexander watching her intently, his expression giving nothing away. Occasionally, he would ask incisive questions that revealed a deep understanding of not just his business, but marketing psychology as well. "Your approach is refreshing, Ms. Foster," Alexander said when she concluded. "Most agencies try to tell me what luxury means, forgetting that the Ashcroft name has defined American luxury for 3 generations." Emily took a calculated risk. "With respect, Mr. Ashcroft, that's precisely why your brand needs evolution, not revolution. You don't need to redefine luxury. You need to ensure that new generations understand why your definition remains relevant." A tense silence followed her bold statement. Richardson shifted uncomfortably beside her, but Emily maintained eye contact with Alexander, whose expression remained unreadable. Then, unexpectedly, Alexander's serious expression gave way to a slight smile. "Well said, Ms. Foster. Perfectly said, in fact." He turned to Richardson. "Your agency has the account. I want Ms. Foster to lead the team." The celebration at Platinum Edge that evening was euphoric. Landing the Ashcroft account was a major coup, and Emily found herself the center of attention at the impromptu office party. Even Caroline offered reluctant congratulations, though her eyes remained cold and calculating. "Don't get too comfortable." "In the spotlight, Foster," Caroline murmured when they found themselves alone by the bar. "The Ashcrofts have a history of burning through marketing teams. This isn't a victory yet. It's just the beginning of the real test." Emily refused to let Caroline's bitterness dampen her triumph. "Then I look forward to being tested," she replied with a confident smile. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity as Emily assembled her team and began developing the full campaign. To her surprise, Alexander Ashcroft insisted on being personally involved in the process, requesting weekly meetings rather than the monthly updates that were standard for clients of his stature. "Mr. Ashcroft is unusually hands-on with this campaign," Richardson commented after one such meeting. "He typically delegates to his marketing department. I think he appreciates having his brand's heritage properly understood," Emily replied, though she had begun to wonder if there was more to Alexander's interest than professional concerns. During their third weekly meeting, held in Alexander's private office rather than the formal conference room, Emily noticed a subtle shift in their dynamic. The conversation flowed beyond business matters to art, architecture, and even literature, revealing that beneath his reserved exterior, Alexander possessed a profound appreciation for culture and ideas. "You surprise me, Miss Foster," Alexander said as they discussed a recent exhibition at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. "Your understanding of both business and aesthetics is uncommon." "Please call me Emily," she offered, surprising herself with the informality. "And I believe that true luxury lives at the intersection of business and beauty. One without the other is either soulless commerce or impractical indulgence." Alexander studied her for a moment, his expression thoughtful. "Emily, then. And you must call me Alexander when we're not in formal meetings." He paused, seeming to make a decision. "Would you be interested in seeing how the Ashcroft philosophy manifests beyond marketing materials? I'm hosting a charity gala at our Hamilton Hotel this Saturday. It would give you valuable context for our brand experience." The invitation caught Emily off guard. Was this a professional opportunity or something more personal? Either way, declining seemed unwise from a business perspective. "I'd be honored," she replied carefully. "It would certainly help me understand the Ashcroft experience firsthand." "Excellent. I'll have my assistant send you the details. Black tie, of course." That Saturday evening found Emily stepping out of a taxi in front of the historic Hamilton Hotel, the crown jewel of the Ashcroft hospitality portfolio. The Neo-Renaissance building, originally constructed in 1908 and meticulously restored by the Ashcroft Group, gleamed with old-world elegance. Emily had spent an anxiety-filled day preparing for the event, finally settling on a midnight blue gown, rented, though no one would know, that managed to be both sophisticated and appropriate for someone attending in a professional capacity. At least that's what she told herself, as she carefully applied her makeup and arranged her hair in a simple but elegant updo. The ballroom took her breath away. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over elaborately decorated tables, while New York's elite mingled over champagne. Emily recognized tech billionaires, fashion designers, and even a former First Lady among the guests. "You look stunning," came Alexander's voice from behind her, causing her to turn in surprise. Up close, in his perfectly tailored tuxedo, he was even more handsome than in his business attire. "That shade of blue suits you perfectly." "Thank you," Emily replied, trying to maintain her professional composure despite the flutter in her stomach. "The gala is magnificent. The attention to detail in everything from the floral arrangements to the menu cards reflects the Ashcroft brand beautifully." Alexander smiled, amused by her marketing analysis. "Always working, Emily? Tonight, try to experience rather than analyze. Come, there are people you should meet." What followed was an introduction to the upper echelons of New York society. Alexander kept her by his side throughout the evening, introducing her to influential figures who could make or break careers with a single word. Emily navigated these interactions with natural charm and intelligence, impressing even the most discerning socialites. "You belong in this world," Alexander told her quietly, as they stood momentarily alone on the balcony overlooking the city lights. "You understand it instinctively." The compliment warmed her, but a flicker of uncertainty passed through her mind. Did she truly belong, or was she just playing a part? The small-town girl pretending to be at home among the elite. Before she could respond, Alexander was called away to address the guests, leaving Emily with her conflicted thoughts. As she watched Alexander deliver a compelling speech about the Foundation's work supporting arts education in underserved communities, Emily found herself increasingly drawn to the complexity of the man. He was undeniably powerful and privileged, yet there seemed to be a genuine commitment to using that privilege for meaningful causes. Later that evening, as Emily prepared to leave, an attendant approached her with a small, elegantly wrapped box. Mr. Ashcroft asked that this be given to you, Miss Foster. Inside the box was an exquisite Art Deco bracelet with sapphires that perfectly matched her gown. The accompanying note read simply, "A token of appreciation for your exceptional work." The bracelet is from the 1920s, beauty with history, just like our discussion. Emily stared at the gift, unease mixing with flattery. The bracelet was clearly valuable, far beyond what would be considered an appropriate professional gift. Accepting it would cross a line she wasn't certain she should cross. After a moment's hesitation, Emily closed the box and slipped it into her clutch. She would decide what to do about it tomorrow, when the magic of the evening wasn't clouding her judgment. Returning to her Brooklyn apartment in the early hours of the morning, Emily kicked off her heels and sank onto her sofa, her mind replaying every moment of the evening. The contrast between the opulence she had just experienced and her modest studio was stark. For the first time, she allowed herself to acknowledge that her feelings for Alexander Ashcroft were becoming dangerously unprofessional. Her phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. "How's the Ashcroft campaign going? Been trying to reach you for days. Call me when you can. Important." Emily made a mental note to call him tomorrow. Right now, she needed to process the evening and what it meant for her personally and professionally. The world she had aspired to enter was now opening its doors to her. But Nathan's persistent warnings echoed in her mind. Not everything that glitters is gold. As she finally drifted off to sleep, Emily was unaware that her rapid ascent had set in motion events that would soon force her to choose between her ambition and her integrity, and that Alexander Ashcroft was at the center of a web far more complex than she could imagine. The sapphire bracelet lay in its elegant box on Emily's dresser, untouched since the night of the gala. Each morning as she prepared for work, her eyes would drift to it, a glittering reminder of boundaries blurring between her professional and personal life. After 3 days of indecision, she finally picked up her phone and called the one person whose advice she trusted implicitly. "So let me get this straight," Nathan said after she explained the situation. "Your client, your very married client, gave you jewelry worth what? 5 figures, 10? Emily winced. "I looked it up. Similar vintage pieces go for around $30,000, and I never said he was married." "Emily," Nathan's voice took on the patient tone he used when explaining financial risks to particularly stubborn clients. "Alexander Ashcroft is married to Catherine Prescott Ashcroft. It was in Vanity Fair last year, America's most private power couple or something like that. They rarely appear together in public, but they're definitely married." The revelation struck Emily like a physical blow. She had researched Alexander extensively for the campaign, but had somehow missed this fundamental detail about his personal life. A quick internet search confirmed Nathan's claim. Photographs showed Alexander alongside a statuesque blonde woman at a charity event. The caption identified her as Catherine Prescott Ashcroft, philanthropy director of the Ashcroft Foundation and wife of Alexander Ashcroft. "I didn't know," Emily said quietly, the implications of Alexander's attention suddenly taking on a much darker dimension. "This is exactly what I've been worried about," Nathan continued. "You're entering a world where the rules are different, Em. People like Ashcroft operate with different expectations and morality. You need to return that bracelet and maintain strict professional boundaries." Emily knew Nathan was right, but pride prevented her from admitting how deeply she had been affected by Alexander's attention. "It's not like that. He values my professional contributions. The bracelet was just a thank you for the campaign work." A $30,000 thank you from a married man who keeps you by his side at social events. Come on, Em. You're smarter than this. Emily bristled at his tone. "I can handle myself, Nate. I've been navigating the corporate world just fine without your guidance." An uncomfortable silence followed her sharp retort. "Just be careful," Nathan finally said, his voice softening. "And I actually called because I wanted to tell you something important. I've been offered a position at Meridian Financial Group in New York. I'd be heading their risk assessment division for luxury market investments." "That's amazing, Nate." Emily's irritation evaporated instantly. "When would you start?" "Next month. I was hoping maybe you could help me apartment hunt. It would be nice to have a friend in the city. The thought of having Nathan nearby brought unexpected relief. Absolutely. We'll find you something much nicer than my shoebox in Brooklyn. After ending the call, Emily stared at the bracelet again, her decision made. She would return it to Alexander at their next meeting with a polite but firm explanation about professional boundaries. The opportunity came sooner than expected. The following morning, Emily received a text message from Alexander himself, the first time he had contacted her directly rather than through his assistant. Last-minute opening for lunch today at La Maison. 1 p.m. Important campaign matters to discuss. La Maison was one of New York's most exclusive restaurants, where reservations typically required months of waiting. Emily replied with a professional confirmation, adding the meeting to her calendar and informing her team. The restaurant's interior was a study in understated luxury, soft lighting, widely spaced tables, and impeccable service that seemed to anticipate needs before they arose. Alexander was already seated at a secluded corner table when Emily arrived, dressed in one of her most businesslike ensembles, and carrying her portfolio along with the bracelet box in her purse. "Emily," Alexander stood to greet her, his smile warm. "Thank you for accommodating the short notice." "Of course, Mr. Ashcroft," she replied deliberately, reverting to formality. "I brought the latest campaign drafts for your review." A flicker of something disappointment crossed his face at her formal tone. "Excellent, but first, let's order. The chef here creates magnificent experiences rather than mere meals." Throughout lunch, Emily maintained strict professionalism, steering conversation back to the campaign whenever Alexander attempted to venture into personal territory. Finally, as they finished their coffee, she reached into her purse and placed the bracelet box on the table between them. "I need to return this," she said quietly but firmly. "While I deeply appreciate the gesture, I cannot accept such a valuable gift. It would be inappropriate." Alexander studied her face carefully before responding. "I've offended you. That wasn't my intention." "Not offended," Emily clarified, "but I value my professional reputation too highly to compromise it." "And you believe accepting a token of appreciation would compromise you?" His question held a challenge. Emily met his gaze directly. "I believe accepting an expensive gift from a married client would, yes." Something shifted in Alexander's expression, a subtle hardening around the eyes, a tightening of his jaw. "I see Nathan Reed has been filling your head with misinformation." The mention of Nathan's name sent a chill through Emily. "How do you know about Nathan?" Alexander waved his hand dismissively. "Basic due diligence. Before entrusting someone with a campaign as important as this one, I naturally investigated your background and connections." He leaned forward slightly. "But Nathan's information about my marriage is outdated. Catherine and I have been separated for over a year. We maintain public appearances for the sake of various charitable boards we both serve on, but our personal relationship is effectively over." The revelation should have brought relief, but instead, it intensified Emily's unease. Alexander had investigated her personal life. How deeply had he looked? What else did he know? Even so, Emily pushed the box closer to him. "I would feel more comfortable maintaining strictly professional boundaries." Alexander regarded her for a long moment before finally taking the box. "I respect your principles, Emily. They're one of the qualities I admire most about you." He pocketed the bracelet. "Now shall we discuss the campaign?" The remainder of the lunch focused on business matters, but an undercurrent of tension remained. When they parted, Alexander's handshake lingered a moment too long, his eyes conveying a message that his words did not. Back at the office, Emily threw herself into work, trying to process the unsettling lunch conversation. She was so absorbed in her thoughts that she barely noticed Caroline approaching her desk until the woman was standing directly in front of her. "Word is you had a private lunch with Alexander Ashcroft today," Caroline said, her voice pitched, low enough that their colleagues couldn't overhear. Emily looked up, irritated by the intrusion. "It was a client meeting about the campaign." Caroline's perfectly manicured nails tapped against Emily's desk. A word of advice from someone who's been in this industry longer than you. Be careful with Alexander. His interest in you isn't just professional, and it isn't just because of your marketing ideas. What's that supposed to mean? Emily asked, bristling at Caroline's presumption. It means you're not the first young, ambitious woman he's taken a special interest in, Caroline replied. Ask yourself why he specifically requested you for this campaign when there are more experienced people available, why he's so personally involved in every meeting, why he's inviting you to galas and private lunches. Because my ideas are innovative and effective, Emily retorted, her voice sharper than intended. Caroline's laugh held no humor. Oh, sweetie, your ideas are good, but not that good. Alexander Ashcroft collects people the way he collects art, for his own purposes and pleasure. When he's done, he discards them. Before Emily could respond, Caroline walked away, leaving her with a growing sense of disquiet. Was Caroline simply jealous, or was there truth to her warning? Later that evening, as Emily worked late finalizing campaign materials, she received an email from an unfamiliar address. The subject line read simply, "Ashcroft financial discrepancies you should know." Her finger hovered over the delete button, assuming it was spam, but curiosity won out. The email contained no message, only an attached spreadsheet. Opening it revealed what appeared to be financial records from various Ashcroft luxury properties. Certain transactions were highlighted in red, with notations questioning, large sums moving between different Ashcroft subsidiaries and offshore accounts. Emily stared at the numbers, her marketing background inadequate for fully understanding what she was seeing, but recognizing enough to know the patterns were unusual. The transactions coincided with major marketing campaigns she had been researching for her work, campaigns that had preceded significant Ashcroft acquisitions or expansions. Her phone rang, startling her so badly she nearly dropped it. Nathan's name flashed on the screen. "Hey, I was just about to call you," she answered, her voice strained. "Emily, we need to talk." Nathan's tone was urgent. "Not on the phone. Can you meet me? It's important." They arranged to meet at a quiet coffee shop halfway between their workplaces the following morning. Emily barely slept that night, her mind racing with questions. The mysterious financial records, Caroline's warning, Alexander's revelation about investigating her background, and now Nathan's urgent request to meet. Something was very wrong. The coffee shop was nearly empty when Emily arrived the next morning. Nathan was already there, looking uncharacteristically disheveled, his normally immaculate appearance marred by a rumpled shirt and dark circles under his eyes. "What's going on, Nate? You look terrible," Emily said as she sat across from him. "I couldn't sleep." He pushed a coffee toward her. "Listen, there's something you need to know about Meridian Financial and why they recruited me. They're launching a major investigation into financial irregularities among luxury market players, including the Ashcroft Group." Emily felt her stomach tighten. What kind of irregularities? Nathan leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Complex ones involving shell companies, tax evasion schemes, and potentially money laundering. I've been brought in because of my expertise in tracking these kinds of patterns." "And the Ashcroft Group is involved?" Emily asked, thinking of the spreadsheet she'd received. "They're central to it," Nathan confirmed. "But here's where it gets complicated. I'm not supposed to know this yet, but one of my future colleagues let it slip. They're particularly interested in the marketing campaigns managed by Platinum Edge." Emily felt the blood drain from her face. "My campaigns. Not just yours, but yes, including the current one. They believe certain marketing expenditures might be covers for moving money through the system." Nathan reached across the table, gripping her hand. If there's anything unusual about how Ashcroft is structuring the campaign finances, anything at all, you need to distance yourself from it immediately." Emily thought about the email she'd received. "Someone sent me financial records yesterday. Anonymous. They showed exactly what you're talking about. Large sums moving between Ashcroft companies during major marketing campaigns." Nathan's expression grew alarmed. "Did you respond? Did you tell anyone else?" "No. I was trying to make sense of it first." "Good. Keep it that way for now. Forward the email to me. I need to see what you've got. And Emily," his grip on her hand tightened, "be extremely careful around Alexander Ashcroft if he suspects you know anything." The unfinished sentence hung between them, more ominous for what it left unsaid. "I should cancel our dinner," Emily murmured, more to herself than to Nathan. "What dinner?" Nathan's head snapped up. Emily hesitated before explaining. "After I returned the bracelet yesterday, Alexander invited me to dinner at his penthouse this Saturday to discuss the campaign direction. He said he had some specific ideas he wanted to share in a less formal setting." "You can't go," Nathan said immediately. "Make an excuse, any excuse." "If I suddenly cancel, won't that seem suspicious? Especially if he's been investigating me, investigating us," Emily countered, her mind racing. "Maybe I should go and act completely normal while we figure out what's really happening." Nathan shook his head vehemently. "It's too risky. Emily, these people don't play by normal rules. If Ashcroft realizes you've seen those financial records, then I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with," Emily said, a steely resolve forming within her. "I'll be careful, but this dinner might be my only chance to understand what's really happening with the Ashcroft Group and how deeply Platinum Edge is involved." As they parted ways outside the coffee shop, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she was standing on the edge of a precipice. Her rise in the luxury marketing world had been meteoric, but now she had to face the possibility that the glamorous facade concealed something far darker, and that she might already be entangled in it beyond escape. The Ashcroft penthouse occupied the top 2 floors of a historic building overlooking Central Park. As the private elevator ascended, Emily mentally rehearsed her strategy: appear normal, gather information, and reveal. Nothing about the financial records or her conversation with Nathan. She had dressed carefully in a simple black dress that conveyed professionalism while still being appropriate for dinner. When the elevator doors opened, Emily was greeted not by a servant as she had expected, but by Alexander himself. He wore casual attire, dark jeans and a light cashmere sweater that somehow looked more expensive than his business suits. "Emily, welcome," he said warmly, guiding her into a vast living space with floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Manhattan skyline. The apartment was a masterpiece of contemporary design, minimalist yet inviting, with carefully curated art pieces that Emily recognized as works by famous contemporary artists. "Your home is stunning," she said honestly, taking in the spectacular view. "The collection you've assembled is museum-worthy." "I believe in surrounding myself with beauty," Alexander replied, his eyes lingering on her in a way that made her momentarily forget her purpose for being there. "Can I offer you a drink? The chef is just finishing preparations." "A glass of white wine would be lovely," Emily said, following him to a sleek bar area. She needed to maintain perfect clarity tonight, so she planned to merely sip whatever he served. Alexander poured 2 glasses of wine from a bottle, whose label Emily recognized as one that retailed for several $100s. As he handed her the glass, his fingers brushed against hers, a touch that seemed deliberately prolonged. "I wanted to apologize again for the misunderstanding with the bracelet," he said, leading her to a seating area positioned to capture the city lights. "I sometimes forget how gestures can be misinterpreted," Emily smiled politely. "No apology necessary. I think we've established clear boundaries now." "Clarity is important," Alexander agreed, though something in his tone suggested he found the concept amusing rather than necessary. "Speaking of clarity, I've been reviewing your campaign proposal, and I'd like to discuss some modifications." For the next half hour, they engaged in detailed discussion about the marketing strategy. Alexander was razor-sharp in his analysis, proposing shifts that Emily had to admit improved the campaign's focus. His business acumen was impressive, and despite her suspicions, she found herself drawn into genuine creative collaboration. When the chef announced dinner, they moved to a dining room dominated by a glass table that appeared to float above the floor. The meal was exquisite, a perfectly prepared 5-course experience featuring ingredients so fresh and rare that Emily wondered about their provenance. "You seem distracted tonight," Alexander observed as they began dessert. "Is something troubling you?" Emily carefully composed her features into a smile. "Not at all. Just processing all your insights about the campaign. Your suggestion to shift the focus from heritage to innovation for the Asian market is particularly astute." Alexander studied her face, and Emily had the discomforting feeling that he could see right through her pretense. I've always believed that success in luxury marketing requires understanding what people truly desire, even when they don't articulate it themselves. He took a sip of wine. People rarely say what they really want, don't you find? Sometimes people don't even know what they really want, Emily countered, keeping her tone light. Oh, I think most people know exactly what they want, Alexander replied. They're just afraid to admit it to themselves. His gaze held hers, a moment too long. Success comes to those who recognize their true desires and have the courage to pursue them without compromise. The conversation felt like it was operating on two levels, the words themselves and an unspoken subtext Emily couldn't quite decipher. Was he talking about marketing philosophy, or was there a more personal implication? After dinner, Alexander suggested showing her his private art collection in the penthouse's second level. As they climbed a floating staircase, Emily's phone vibrated in her clutch. She glanced at it discreetly, a text from Nathan. Need to talk, urgent. Call when you can. Everything all right? Alexander asked, noticing her momentary distraction. Just work, Emily lied smoothly, silencing her phone. The team is finalizing presentations for Monday. The upper level housed Alexander's private gallery, a museum-quality space featuring rare pieces by masters, both classic and contemporary. As they walked among the artwork, Alexander spoke passionately about each piece, revealing a depth of knowledge that surprised Emily. They paused before a striking abstract painting. This one particularly speaks to me, Alexander said, standing close enough that Emily could feel the warmth radiating from him. The artist created beauty from chaos, finding patterns and meaning where others saw only disorder. It's extraordinary, Emily agreed genuinely, moved by the artwork. The way she's balanced disruption with harmony. Exactly, Alexander said, his voice softening with appreciation. You see it too. He turned to face her, their proximity suddenly intimate. That's what makes you different, Emily. You understand nuance in a world of people who see only surface. Before Emily could respond, Alexander's phone chimed. He glanced at it, his expression hardening momentarily. Excuse me, I need to take this. As he stepped away to answer the call, Emily wandered further along the gallery, stopping before a small side table that held a framed photograph. It showed Alexander standing beside a beautiful blonde woman, presumably Catherine, both smiling at some formal event. Despite Alexander's claim about their separation, they looked very much like a happy couple. Next to the photo lay an open portfolio containing what appeared to be architectural renderings. Emily's curiosity drew her closer, and she recognized the plans for a new Ashcroft resort development that had been mentioned in their campaign discussions. But something was off. The financial projections attached to the renderings showed figures dramatically different from those that had been presented to Platinum Edge. The sound of Alexander's voice grew louder as he returned, giving Emily just enough time to step away from the portfolio. His expression had changed, the warmth replaced by a cool efficiency that hadn't been present earlier. I apologize, but something requires my attention, he said, his tone businesslike. My driver will take you home. Of course, Emily replied, maintaining a pleasant expression despite the abrupt shift. Thank you for dinner and for sharing your incredible collection. It was my pleasure, Alexander said, his usual charm returning, though it now seemed more calculated than genuine. As they descended the stairs, he added casually, I've been meaning to ask, how is Nathan settling into his new position at Meridian? The question, delivered with such pointed casualness, sent a chill through Emily. Nathan hadn't started at Meridian yet, and they'd only discussed his new job privately. How could Alexander know? He hasn't started yet, Emily replied carefully, but he's looking forward to it. Meridian is an excellent firm, Alexander continued, though I hear their risk assessment division is becoming rather aggressive in their investigations lately. The implication was clear. Alexander knew exactly what Nathan would be doing at Meridian. The question was how much else he knew about their conversations. In the elevator down to the waiting car, Emily maintained her composure through sheer force of will. Alexander's parting words as the doors closed were delivered with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "We should continue our conversation about the campaign soon. I feel we're on the verge of a breakthrough." The moment the car pulled away from the building, Emily called Nathan, but the call went straight to voicemail. She texted, "Just left A's, need to talk, something's wrong." Back in her apartment, Emily paced anxiously, unable to reach Nathan. The evening had confirmed her worst suspicions. Alexander was clearly monitoring her, perhaps even Platinum Edge itself. The financial discrepancies in the portfolio matched the patterns from the anonymous email, suggesting the questionable transactions were indeed happening. Just before midnight, her laptop chimed with an incoming email. The sender was unfamiliar, but the subject line made her heart race. Ashcroft Foundation, follow the money. The email contained only a password-protected file and the message, "Use your mother's maiden name." Emily immediately entered Sullivan, and the file opened to reveal hundreds of documents, financial records, internal memos, and transaction histories for the Ashcroft Group's various entities. Someone with inside access was clearly trying to expose the operation. Emily scrolled through the documents, piecing together a disturbing picture. The Ashcroft Group appeared to be using its luxury marketing campaigns, including her own, to disguise financial transactions that moved money between shell companies, artificially inflated property values, and potentially evaded taxes on a massive scale. More disturbing still, she discovered communications suggesting that Platinum Edge wasn't just an unwitting participant. Several senior executives, including James Richardson himself, appeared to be knowingly facilitating these arrangements in exchange for substantial personal payoffs. As she delved deeper into the files, a thread about Project Midas caught her attention. It detailed plans for the Ashcroft Group's newest venture, a series of ultra-luxury resorts in developing countries built on land acquired through questionable means, with local officials receiving consultation fees that looked suspiciously like bribes. Her own campaign was central to Project Midas, positioning these developments as ethical luxury and community investment, when the reality appeared to be exploitation on a grand scale. A knock at her door startled Emily so badly she nearly dropped her laptop. At nearly 1 in the morning, who would be at her door? Cautiously, she approached and looked through the peephole. Caroline Maxwell stood in the hallway, looking uncharacteristically disheveled. Emily hesitated before opening the door. "Caroline, what are you doing here at this hour?" "Can I come in?" Caroline asked, her usual confidence replaced by evident anxiety. "It's not safe to talk in the hallway." Against her better judgment, Emily let her in. Caroline immediately began scanning the apartment as if looking for something or someone. "How? Did you even know where I live?" Emily asked, increasingly uneasy. "There's no time for that," Caroline replied, her voice low. "I need to know exactly what Alexander Ashcroft discussed with you tonight." Emily crossed her arms defensively. "That's none of your business. How did you know I was with him?" "Because I've been there, Emily," Caroline said, an edge of desperation in her voice. 3 years ago I was you. The promising young executive Alexander took a special interest in. I was assigned to lead the Ashcroft campaign back then, just like you are now." The revelation stunned Emily into momentary silence. "He cultivated groomed me," Caroline continued bitterly. "Made me feel special, chosen. By the time I realized what was really happening, I was already implicated in their financial schemes. Too involved to walk away without destroying my career or worse." "Why are you telling me this now?" Emily asked, though she was beginning to understand. "Because Nathan Reed contacted me," Caroline said. "He found my name in the Meridian investigation files and realized the connection to you. He's been trying to build a case against Ashcroft for months, working with federal investigators. He believes you're in danger." Emily felt as if the floor had dropped from beneath her feet. "Nathan is working with federal investigators? Since when?" "Since before he was recruited to Meridian," Caroline replied. "The job offer was part of his cover, a way to access more financial data, but Ashcroft has people everywhere. Somehow, they discovered Nathan's true purpose. He's gone dark, which means either he's in hiding or Caroline didn't finish the sentence. "I don't understand," Emily said, struggling to process the information. "Why would Nathan be investigating Ashcroft in the first place? He's a financial analyst, not law enforcement." Caroline's expression shifted, revealing genuine surprise. "You really don't know, do you? Nathan's sister worked for one of Ashcroft's development projects in South America 4 years ago. She discovered environmental violations and threatened to report them. She disappeared the next day. The local authorities ruled it an accident, but Nathan never believed that." The revelation about Nathan hit Emily like a physical blow. In all their years of friendship, he had never mentioned a sister. How much of what she thought she knew about her best friend was actually true? "I need proof," Emily said, her mind racing. "I can't just take your word for this." Caroline pulled out her phone and opened a photo album. "This is me with Alexander 3 years ago, at the same charity gala he took you to recently. And these," she continued, scrolling through several images, "are documents showing my signature on marketing agreements that were later used to facilitate money movements. I was set up to take the fall if anything went wrong." The evidence was compelling, aligning perfectly with what Emily had discovered in the leaked files. But one question remained unanswered. Why would Alexander risk bringing me into this? If the Ashcroft group is already under investigation, why expose themselves further? Caroline's answer was chilling in its simplicity. "Because you're not just a marketing executive to them, Emily. You're the perfect scapegoat. Young, ambitious, no family connections to protect you. If the investigation gets too close, all evidence will point to you as the mastermind." She paused, letting the words sink in. "They've already started laying the groundwork. Check your signature against the financial documents for Project Midas." With shaking hands, Emily returned to her laptop and found the Midas documents. There on multiple authorization forms was her signature, perfectly forged but unmistakably meant to be hers. "This can't be happening," Emily whispered, the full scope of her situation becoming horrifyingly clear. "It is happening," Caroline replied grimly, "and we have very little time to act. Nathan has arranged for someone to meet us, a federal agent who can offer protection in exchange for testimony. But we need to leave now." Emily stood frozen, overwhelmed by the rapid unraveling of everything she had worked for. Her promising career, her ambitions, her very freedom, all now hanging by a thread because she had been selected as the perfect fall person for a sophisticated financial scheme. As Caroline impatiently gestured toward the door, Emily made a split-second decision that would alter the course of her life forever. She grabbed her laptop, phone, and the external drive where she'd saved copies of the leaked documents, the only evidence that might prove her innocence and expose the truth about the Ashcroft empire. The luxury world she had so desperately wanted to be part of had indeed welcomed her in, not as a rising star, but as a carefully groomed sacrifice to protect the powerful from their own corruption. Dawn broke over New York City as Emily and Caroline sat in a nondescript hotel room in Queens, far from the luxury high-rises of Manhattan. The room had been booked under a false name provided by Caroline's contact, a precaution that had seemed paranoid to Emily just hours ago, but now felt woefully inadequate. "How much longer?" Emily asked, pacing the small space between the beds. Sleep had been impossible, her mind racing with the implications of everything she had learned. "He said he'd be here by 7, Caroline replied, checking her watch. "Another 20 minutes. Emily paused by the window, carefully peering through the gap in the curtains at the parking lot below. The ordinary scene, early morning commuters heading to their cars, a delivery truck unloading at the adjacent building, seemed surreal in contrast to the extraordinary circumstances that had brought her here. "I still don't understand why Nathan didn't tell me about his sister," Emily said, turning back to Caroline. "We've been friends for years. He knew everything about me." Caroline's expression softened slightly. People carrying grief and suspicion learn to compartmentalize. Besides, would you have believed him if he'd told you Alexander Ashcroft was involved in his sister's disappearance? Or would you have thought he was being paranoid? The question stung because Emily knew the answer. In her ambition-fueled ascent, She would have dismissed Nathan's concerns as irrational bias against the wealthy elite. She had been so eager to belong to that world that she had willfully ignored the warning signs. A soft knock at the door interrupted her self-recrimination. Caroline approached cautiously, checking the peephole before stepping back with visible relief. "It's them," she whispered, unlocking the door. Two people entered the room, a tall, stern-looking woman in her 40s, wearing a nondescript pantsuit, and behind her, to Emily's overwhelming relief, Nathan. "Nathan!" Emily rushed forward, embracing her friend tightly. "I thought something had happened to you." "I'm okay," he assured her, though his appearance suggested otherwise. His usually immaculate attire was rumpled, his face haggard from lack of sleep, and a fading bruise marked his left cheekbone. "But we need to move quickly." The woman stepped forward, extending her hand formally. "Miss Foster, I'm Special Agent Diana Winters with the Financial Crimes Task Force. I understand Ms. Maxwell has briefed you on the situation." Emily nodded, still processing the surreal nature of the meeting. "She told me about the investigation into the Ashcroft Group and that I've been set up to take the fall if things go wrong." "That's an accurate assessment," Agent Winters confirmed, her tone matter-of-fact. "We've been building a case against Alexander Ashcroft and his network for nearly 2 years, but they're exceptionally careful. The evidence we have is compelling but circumstantial. What we need is an insider willing to testify." "That's where you come in," Nathan added, meeting Emily's eyes. "You have access that could blow this whole thing open." Emily felt a surge of anger. "Is that why you pushed me to take the job at Platinum Edge? To place me in this position?" Nathan's expression filled with regret. "No, Em. I never wanted you involved in this. When you told me about the Ashcroft account, I tried to warn you away without revealing too much. It wasn't until Alexander started showing personal interest in you that I realized you might be in danger. We believe Alexander Ashcroft identified you as a potential scapegoat months ago," Agent Winters interjected. "Your background? Impressive. Credentials but no powerful family connections. Ambitious but ethical. New enough to be manipulable. Made you an ideal candidate." "The job offer at Meridian was real," Nathan explained, "but I accepted it to get closer to the investigation, to try to protect you." Emily sank onto the edge of the bed, overwhelmed. "So what happens now?" Agent Winters opened her briefcase, extracting a folder. "We're prepared to offer you full immunity in exchange for your cooperation. We need you to continue working with Ashcroft, gathering evidence while wearing a wire. With your access to both Alexander and Platinum Edge's operations, you could provide the proof. We need to bring down the entire network." The proposal hit Emily like a blow. "You want me to go back to pretend nothing has happened and spy on them?" "It's the best option, Ms. Foster," Agent Winters replied firmly. "The alternative is two-way. Enter witness protection immediately, abandoning your identity, your career, your entire life." "There has to be another way," Emily protested, looking to Nathan for support. His expression was grim. "Em, you've seen what they're capable of. If you simply disappear now, they'll know something's wrong. And if you try to go back to your normal life without helping the investigation, you'll still be in their crosshairs, both as a potential threat and as their designated fall person." Caroline, who had been silent during the exchange, finally spoke. "There's also a third option." All eyes turned to her. "We use the evidence we already have, Emily's documents combined with my testimony and the task force's existing case, to approach James Richardson." "Absolutely not," Agent Winters responded immediately. "Richardson is compromised. He's been facilitating Ashcroft's operations for years." "Exactly," Caroline countered. "Which means he has even more to lose than any of us. He has a family, a reputation, a legacy he cares about deeply. If we show him the evidence against him and offer him a way out, he might flip on Ashcroft." A tense silence filled the room as the others considered Caroline's suggestion. Emily found herself studying her former rival with new appreciation. Behind Caroline's calculating exterior was a strategic mind that had clearly been working on an exit plan for years. "It's too risky," Agent Winters finally said. "Richardson could alert Ashcroft immediately." "Not if we approach him correctly," Caroline insisted. "I've worked with James for over 7 years. I know how he thinks, what he values, and most importantly, what he fears. He's involved, yes, but he's not a true believer in what Ashcroft is doing. He's a man who made compromises that spiraled out of control. Nathan looked thoughtful. It could work. If Richardson cooperates, he could provide access to documents and communications that would take us months to uncover otherwise. Agent Winters's expression remained skeptical, but she didn't immediately dismiss the idea. Assuming we were to consider this approach, how would you suggest proceeding? We need to show him irrefutable evidence that the investigation is real and advanced enough that cooperation is his only viable option, Caroline explained. Then offer him a deal similar to what you're offering Emily, immunity in exchange for full cooperation. As the others debated strategy, Emily's mind raced ahead to the implications. If they succeeded, the Ashcroft luxury empire would collapse, taking with it the careers and reputations of everyone involved, including her own. The glossy world she had worked so hard to enter would be revealed as fundamentally corrupt, built on exploitation and deception. Yet despite everything, a strange sense of clarity was emerging from the chaos. The ambition that had driven her since college suddenly seemed hollow, a pursuit of success without substance. "I'll do it," Emily said suddenly, interrupting the ongoing debate. "I'll wear the wire and gather evidence against Ashcroft." She turned to Agent Winters. "But I have conditions." The agent raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." "First, I want guarantees that the small businesses and innocent employees caught in this web won't suffer when everything comes to light," Emily stated firmly. "Second, I want to be involved in rebuilding after the case breaks, helping to create transparent systems in the luxury market. And third," she looked directly at Nathan, "I want the truth about what happened to your sister. All of it." Nathan's expression tightened with pain, but he nodded. Her name was Rebecca. She was an environmental engineer working on sustainability, certification for the Ashcroft Resort in Costa Rica. She discovered they were falsifying environmental impact reports and bribing local officials to ignore watershed contamination. He paused, gathering himself before continuing. When she threatened to go public, she disappeared during a site inspection. The official report claimed she fell from a cliff path during a storm, but her body was never recovered. I've spent the last 4 years trying to prove what really happened. The room fell silent as the weight of Nathan's loss settled over them. Emily reached for her friend's hand, squeezing it gently. "We'll find the truth, Nate, I promise." Agent Winters cleared her throat. "Your first 2 conditions are reasonable and can be arranged. As for the third, we can't make promises about evidence we don't yet have, but pursuing the full scope of Ashcroft's activities would naturally include investigating any connection to Ms. Reed's disappearance." "That's enough for now," Emily decided. "So how do we proceed?" The next 2 hours were spent developing a detailed plan. Emily would return to work on Monday as if nothing had changed. She would be fitted with discreet recording equipment and given secure communication channels to the task force. Her primary objective would be to gather evidence on Project Midas and the financial structures behind it. "Alexander will expect you to contact him after last night," Caroline advised. "He deliberately left things unresolved to prompt you to reach out." Emily nodded, the reality of her situation sinking in. She would need to pretend interest in a man she now knew to be manipulative and potentially dangerous. A man who had selected her as a potential scapegoat for his financial crimes. "What about Richardson?" Nathan asked. "Do we approach him as Caroline suggested?" After careful consideration, Agent Winters reluctantly agreed. "We'll give Ms. Maxwell one opportunity to sound him out, carefully with no specific details. If he shows any willingness to cooperate, we'll proceed. If not, we drop that approach immediately." As the meeting concluded and preparations were made for Emily's return to her apartment, with surveillance in place to ensure her safety, she found herself alone with Nathan for a brief moment. "I'm sorry I never told you about Rebecca," he said quietly. "At first it was too painful to talk about. Then, as I started investigating, I was afraid that knowing too much might put you in danger." "And yet, here we are," Emily replied with a sad smile. "Me in danger anyway. That's not on you," Nathan assured her, his expression earnest. "That's on me for not being more forceful in warning you away from Ashcroft." Emily shook her head. "No, Nate. It's on Ashcroft and the system that enables people like him to operate with impunity. But that's about to change." 3 weeks later, Emily sat in a federal building conference room surrounded by agents, prosecutors, and financial crime specialists. On the table before them lay mountains of evidence, documents, recordings, financial records, and testimony from over a dozen cooperating witnesses, including James Richardson. Caroline's instinct about Richardson had proved correct. When confronted with evidence of his involvement and offered a path to redemption, the creative director had crumbled, revealing years of coerced participation in Ashcroft's schemes. His testimony had been the tipping point, leading to a cascade of cooperation from others within Platinum Edge and the broader luxury marketing world. "The indictments will be unsealed tomorrow morning," announced the lead prosecutor, a serious woman with steel-gray hair. "Alexander Ashcroft and 7 of his top executives will be charged with multiple counts of financial fraud, tax evasion, money laundering, and corrupt practices. It's one of the most significant white-collar crime cases in recent history." Emily felt a complex mixture of emotions, vindication, relief, and a lingering sadness for the collateral damage that would inevitably follow. Hundreds of innocent employees would have their lives disrupted, clients would face public relations, nightmares, and the luxury market would undergo painful but necessary scrutiny. "What about the evidence related to Rebecca Reed?" she asked, glancing at Nathan, who sat beside her. The prosecutor's expression softened slightly. "We've forwarded all relevant materials to the International Division. They're working with Costa Rican authorities to reopen the investigation. I can't promise outcomes, but there will be a genuine effort to discover the truth." For Nathan, that pursuit of truth was enough for now. The hollowness that had haunted his eyes for years had begun to recede, replaced by determination to see justice done, not just for his sister, but for all those harmed by corrupt practices. As the meeting concluded, Emily found herself standing before the floor-to-ceiling windows of the federal building, looking out at the New York skyline. The Ashcroft Tower was visible in the distance, still gleaming in the afternoon sun, unaware that its foundations were about to crumble. "What will you do now?" Caroline asked, joining her at the window. Emily had been asking herself the same question. Her career in luxury marketing was effectively over, not because of failure, but because she could no longer participate in an industry she now understood too well. "I'm thinking of starting over," she replied, "using what I've learned to create something different, a consulting firm focused on ethical business practices and genuine sustainability in the luxury sector." She turned to Caroline. "What about you?" Caroline smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her usually guarded features. "I've been offered a position with a financial oversight group. Apparently, my insider knowledge of deceptive marketing practices is considered valuable." "It is valuable," Emily agreed. "We both learned lessons the hard way." As they prepared to leave the building, Nathan approached with Agent Winters. "There's one more thing you should know," the agent said. "We've been authorized to tell you that the task force found evidence suggesting Catherine Prescott Ashcroft was preparing to file for divorce. And blow the whistle on her husband's operations before you ever came into the picture. Her foundation work appears to have been genuine, and she was increasingly uncomfortable with the source of the money funding it." "So she wasn't complicit?" Emily asked, surprised by this revelation. "It's complicated," Agent Winters replied. "She benefited from the schemes, but was taking steps to distance herself. She's cooperating fully now, which will likely result in a more lenient outcome for her." The news brought a strange sense of closure for Emily. The woman in the photograph, who she had briefly envied and then pitied, had been on her own journey toward truth. Outside, the spring air carried the promise of renewal. Emily, Nathan, and Caroline walked together toward a small cafe where they had agreed to meet with Richardson, no longer as colleagues or rivals, but as reluctant allies bound by shared experience and the commitment to create something better from the ashes of what had fallen. "You know," Emily said thoughtfully as they walked, "when I first came to New York, I thought luxury was about exclusivity and prestige. Now I understand that true luxury is something else entirely. It's integrity, transparency, and creating genuine value. Nathan smiled, the tension that had defined him for years noticeably lighter. So the ambitious girl from Pennsylvania finally figured out what she really wanted after all. I did, Emily agreed, looking ahead to a future suddenly rich with authentic possibility rather than hollow ambition. And it turns out it wasn't what glittered but what endured. As they rounded the corner, the afternoon sun briefly blinded them, not as a warning this time, but as an illumination, revealing a path forward built on truth rather than deception, substance rather than appearance, and the courage to stand for something real in a world too often satisfied with carefully crafted illusions. Pfeifender Historia. Dear listeners, we hope you've been captivated by Emily's journey through the dazzling yet deceptive world of luxury marketing. Her story reminds us that beneath the surface of success often lies choices that define who we truly are. For more compelling stories that explore the complexities of ambition, ethics, and redemption, we've created a special playlist of equally engaging narratives. Just click the link to your left. If Emily's transformation resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Every day we bring you unique stories that delve into life's complexities and moral dilemmas. What would you have done in Emily's position? Share your thoughts in the comments below and join us tomorrow for another unforgettable tale that will make you question, reflect, and feel. Your support allows us to continue crafting these immersive journeys for you.